Aliens horrified as humans devour their planet's top predator. HFY. The survey drones arrived first. Silent, efficient, and unseen, they swept through the atmosphere of Ygrith 4, scanning terrain, identifying native species, and analyzing resources. The planet was a lush, hostile world teeming with life, a death world by most galactic standards. Every creature on the surface had evolved to survive constant predation, from the razor-scaled quadrupeds that lurked in the jungle depths to the venomous flyers that patrolled the skies. But among them all, one species reigned supreme. The Kthari called it the Dread Maw. 50 feet of coiled muscle, armored plating, and bone-crushing jaws. It burrowed through the earth with unnatural speed, erupting from below to devour anything in its path. Not even the Kthari, a race of powerful six-limbed hunters, dared to challenge it. Their ancestors had learned through blood and extinction that no weapon they possessed could stop the beast. It was the apex predator of Ygrith 4. The humans saw it differently. Commander Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the UNSC Endeavour, reviewing the data stream from the drones. "This thing is impressive," he muttered, watching thermal footage of a Dread Maw ambushing an entire Kthari hunting party. The alien warriors scrambled, some leaping high with acrobatic grace, but none escaped. The monster burst from the ground like a living missile, swallowing its prey whole before vanishing beneath the surface. Dr. Evelyn Carter, the ship's exobiologist, shuddered. "That's not just an apex predator. That's a planetary-level threat. The Kthari treat it as a god." Nathan smirked. "Yeah. Well, humans have killed a few gods before." The bridge fell silent. A challenge had been issued. The Kthari's warning. Days later, an official delegation of Kthari elders arrived aboard the Endeavour. Their leader, Elder Zildar, was old even by his people's standards, his fur graying, his voice weathered by centuries of survival. He studied the humans with wary respect. They were strange creatures, bipeds without claws or fangs, soft-fleshed but radiating confidence. He had heard of them before. Warriors, survivors, killers. But even they would break against the Dread Maw. "You do not understand," Zildar rumbled, his voice a low growl. "Your machines fly above it. Your weapons observe it from afar. But distance breeds arrogance. This creature is not prey. It is hunger given form. You cannot kill it." Nathan leaned forward. "You're saying it can't be killed because you've never killed one?" Zildar bared his fangs, a sign of agitation. "Because none have ever lived after trying." A quiet moment passed. Then the humans laughed. Not mockery. Not disbelief. But something worse, excitement. Dr. Carter tapped on her tablet, scanning the reports. "You say it's unkillable. But what about edible?" Zildar froze. "You do not mean." "She means," Nathan interrupted, "that if it bleeds, we can eat it." The Kthari delegation recoiled. Horrified. Disgusted. Even among their most fearless warriors, the thought of consuming the flesh of a Dread Maw was unthinkable. But the humans? They were already planning the hunt. The hunt begins. The Kthari watched in grim fascination as the humans prepared. Unlike their own ancestors who had once fought with spears and ritualistic blades, these strange beings used weapons designed for war. Rail rifles, concussion grenades, thermal charges, the tools of apex predators that had wiped out every threat in their path. Nathan stood at the edge of the jungle, flanked by his squad. "All right," he said, sliding around into his rifle. "Let's go find the biggest damn thing on this planet and see how it tastes." They advanced into the wilderness. The jungle pulsed with life. Every step was met with the chittering of unseen creatures, watching, waiting, assessing these new arrivals. Above, serpentine flyers circled, their eyes glowing with unnatural intelligence. But none attacked. They knew better. The jungle was not theirs to rule. Hours passed before the first sign of the Dread Maw appeared. The ground rumbled. Trees trembled. The air thickened with tension. And then, the earth exploded. The Dread Maw erupted from the ground, scales glistening, eyes burning with predatory hunger. It descended like a living avalanche, its mouth a cavern lined with rows of serrated fangs. Any sane species would have fled. The humans opened fire. Predator versus predator. Bullets tore into the Dread Maw's armored hide, sending shards of bone plating flying. It roared, a sound that shook the jungle, and lunged. Nathan dove to the side, feeling the shockwave of its impact. "EMP out," someone shouted. A pulse detonated, scrambling the creature's electrical senses. It whipped around, blinded, its massive head smashing through trees. But it wasn't done. It learned. It adapted. Within seconds it adjusted, hunting by sound and vibration alone. Dr. Carter watched from a ridge, whispering in awe, "It's still coming." Nathan grinned. "Good. So are we." A second barrage followed. Armor-piercing rounds. Explosive-tipped spears. The dread maw shuddered, its hide splitting open, black ichor spilling into the dirt. And yet, it refused to fall. Then Nathan drew his blade. A single, monomolecular combat knife. To the Kthari it seemed insane, to get closer, to engage in melee against a nightmare-given form. But to the humans? This was a tradition. Nathan leapt onto the beast's back. His knife sank deep into the gap between its armored plates. The dread maw screeched, trying to shake him off, but he held firm, driving the blade deeper. Then a final strike. Right into the creature's exposed nerve cluster. The dread maw collapsed. Silence fell. The jungle, the watchers, the hunters, all stood in awe. Nathan exhaled, wiping sweat from his forehead. Then he turned to his squad. "All right," he said. "Who's hungry?" The Kthari stared in absolute horror. For humans, the hunt had only just begun. Elder Zildar's golden eyes narrowed as he studied the humans standing before him. He had spent over 2 centuries leading the Kthari, witnessing battles, hunts, and the slow, painful learning process of his people as they adapted to the brutal world of Yggdrath 4. But never in all his years had he seen such arrogance in the face of the dread maw. "You do not understand what you seek," Zildar rumbled, his voice deep and slow like shifting stone. "The maw is not prey. It is not a foe to be defeated." His sharp claws tapped against the metal table between them. "It is a force. It is Yggdrath itself. It does not die. It only feeds." Nathan Cole leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. The humans had made first contact with the Kthari weeks ago, and tensions had been cautious but peaceful. Now, with the latest discovery of the dread maw, their interactions had taken a dramatic turn. "So you're saying," Nathan said, raising an eyebrow, "that in all your people's history no one has ever killed one?" Zildar exhaled sharply, the Kthari equivalent of a bitter laugh. "Many have tried. You stand in the shadow of their bones." Dr. Evelyn Carter, sitting beside Nathan, was more cautious. "We're not questioning your knowledge, Elder. We simply need to understand this species. If it's truly an unstoppable force, then we must know why. No species is immortal." Zildar's golden gaze darkened. He looked between the humans, his clawed fingers curling slightly. "They do not know fear." That realization unsettled him. Fear was survival. Fear was wisdom. Fear kept the Kthari from extinction. "You seek death," he said, voice low and grave. "But do not say we did not warn you." Nathan smirked. "Not death, Elder." He leaned forward. "We seek dinner." Zildar recoiled slightly, his fur bristling. The humans were mad. Preparing for the hunt. A week later, the hunt was set. The humans had spent days studying the dread maw's movement patterns, analyzing its behaviors and, most importantly, figuring out how to lure it out. The Kthari watched in horrified fascination as the newcomers assembled what they called a strike team. Nathan and his squad, elite special forces from Earth, stood in the planetary clearing, their armor matte black, their weapons gleaming under the pale Yggdrathian sun. These were not scholars or mere hunters. These were warriors trained for battles across the galaxy. Evelyn stood with the Kthari elders, observing as the humans worked. "Your warriors prepare to fight," Zildar noted, watching as one soldier sharpened a combat knife. "But steel does not stop the maw. Our spears break against its hide. Our strongest are swallowed whole before they can strike." Evelyn smiled slightly. "We don't just use steel." With that, Nathan signaled to his team. The ground beneath them trembled. From a distance, an automated supply drone lifted off from the Endeavor's landing site, hovering high above the jungle. Then, with a sharp mechanical clunk, the bait was dropped. A massive slab of raw, heavily scented synthetic meat, infused with pheromones designed to mimic prey, slammed into the ground with a thud. The jungle went still. Not a single creature moved. Even the smaller predators that lurked in the shadows of the alien trees vanished. The Kthari shifted uneasily. The maw would come. Nathan checked his rifle, a customized Gauss weapon designed for high-velocity penetration. Beside him, Lieutenant James Jim Foster grinned, shouldering a massive plasma cannon. The rest of the team, 10 in total, each carried a mix of heavy ordnance, kinetic railguns, and, most importantly, a set of anti-burrowing seismic charges. "All right, people," Nathan said over the squad's comms. "We got one shot at this. Eyes up." Then the ground erupted. The dread maw emerges. At first there was only the silence. Then a low rumbling vibration rolled through the earth. The trees shuddered, leaves trembling as something deep below moved. A fissure split the clearing, the ground cracking apart. A shadow passed beneath them, colossal and unstoppable. Then it struck. The dread maw exploded from the ground like a missile, a towering nightmare of blackened chitin, gnashing fangs and writhing armored coils. The beast was almost serpentine, its body plated in segmented bone-like armor that shimmered in the alien sunlight. Its head was a nightmare of jagged mandibles, its maw lined with rotating rings of razor-sharp teeth designed to grind bone and steel alike. The Kthari watching from the distance fell to their knees, their instincts screaming flight. The humans held their ground. Target confirmed. Nathan shouted. Light it up. The battlefield ignited. Jim's plasma cannon roared, sending a column of superheated energy straight into the dread maw's hide. The beast shrieked, a horrifying multi-tonal scream that sent ripples through the air. A second later, the rest of the squad unleashed hell. Railgun slugs punched into the creature's armor, explosions from grenades ripped chunks from its plated hide, and precision sniper rounds targeted its exposed joints. But the maw did not stop. It lunged forward with impossible speed, its massive jaw snapping inches from Nathan's head as he dove aside. The sheer force of its movement cracked the ground. Its coils whipped around, sending a soldier flying into the trees, his armor sparking from the impact. Stay mobile. Nathan barked. Hit it from the flanks. The seismic charges had to be placed perfectly. The maw was a burrower, its strength was in its movement underground. If they could disrupt its tunneling, they could turn the fight. Jim sprinted forward, sliding under a snapping jaw, and slammed the first charge into the ground. Two more soldiers followed suit, dodging the maw's frantic thrashing as they secured their explosives. Then the final signal. Detonate. Boom. The ground beneath the dread maw collapsed as the seismic charges detonated in unison. The beast let out a deafening screech as its primary escape route was obliterated, leaving it fully exposed. And the humans? They closed in for the kill. The final blow. Nathan jumped onto the maw's writhing form, his combat knife slashing into the exposed joint near its mandibles. The creature roared, but the rest of the squad was already upon it, dousing it in liquid thermite, hammering its weakened armor with concussive blasts and pouring gunfire into its gaping maw. The final shot came from above. A second supply drone, waiting high in the sky, dropped its payload, a 10-ton tungsten rod fired from orbit at terminal velocity. The kinetic strike slammed into the dread maw's skull like the fist of an angry god. The creature collapsed. Silence fell over the jungle. The dust settled. And then cheers. Nathan wiped blood from his visor, looking down at the massive corpse beneath him. Well, he said, panting. That was a workout. From the distance, the Kthari elders stared in absolute horror. You, Zildar whispered. You have killed the maw. Nathan grinned, pulling out a combat blade. He crouched by the massive corpse and sliced off a piece of its flesh. Correction, he said, holding up the meat. We're about to eat it. The dense jungles of Yggdrasil 4 were unlike anything found on Earth. Towering bioluminescent fungi cast eerie blue-green light across the undergrowth, while massive, gnarled roots twisted through the swampy terrain like the fossilized remains of ancient titans. The air was thick with humidity, carrying the scent of decay and the ever-present stench of the dread maw's kills. Nathan Cole tightened his grip on his kinetic rifle, sweeping the weapon across the jungle floor as he scanned for movement. Beside him, Dr. Evelyn Carter was already setting up the team's bioscanners, their screens flickering with data on the planet's ecosystem. Behind them, a team of hardened human survivalists, ex-military trackers, and biologists moved in practiced silence, their boots barely making a sound against the damp earth. The Kthari refused to join them. Elder Zildar had made it clear. If humans wanted to die, they would do so alone. All right, people, Nathan murmured into his comms. The maw's last sighting was 3 clicks east. If the reports are accurate, this thing has a hunting range that spans over 100 miles, and it doesn't share territory. That means it's close. Evelyn frowned at her scanner. I'm getting anomalous readings already. Something's distorting the atmospheric density. The jungle went silent. Every chirping insect, every rustling leaf, every distant call of the lesser predators ceased. Nathan's instincts screamed at him. Predators don't make noise. Their prey does. Eyes up, he whispered. Then the ground shook. The arrival of the dread maw. Something massive moved through the jungle ahead. Trees bent and splintered like twigs under an unimaginable force. The team instinctively crouched, gripping their weapons. The air itself vibrated, the pressure dropping like the onset of a storm. Then they saw it. The dread maw was colossal, a behemoth of shifting, segmented chitin, its obsidian-black body blending seamlessly with the shadows. Rows upon rows of razor-edged mandibles clicked and gnashed, each larger than a human torso. But its most terrifying feature was its eyes, 6 burning crimson orbs that pulsed with an eerie alien intelligence. Evelyn's breath hitched. "That's not just an animal." Nathan grinned. "No, it's not." He raised his rifle and fired. The dread maw was colossal, a behemoth of shifting, segmented chitin, its obsidian-black body blending seamlessly with the shadows. Rows upon rows of razor-edged mandibles clicked and gnashed, each larger than a human torso. But its most terrifying feature was its eyes, 6 burning orbs of amber, pulsating with an unnatural glow, tracking movement with an intelligence that no mere beast should possess. The Kthari had described it as a force of nature, something beyond their understanding. But to Nathan Cole, it was just another apex predator, one that bled and one that could be killed. "Hold your fire," he whispered into his comms. "We need to bait it out." Evelyn swallowed hard, gripping her pulse carbine. "Bait it out? Nathan, that thing could eat a tank." The dread maw lunged. A blur of chitin and darkness, it exploded from the undergrowth, covering the distance in less than a second. The ground tore apart under its weight, sending tremors through the jungle floor. The team scattered. Nathan rolled to the side, barely avoiding a scything mandible that carved through the space where he'd stood. The predator let out a horrific screech, a deafening sound that rattled bones and sent a shockwave through the air. It wasn't just an attack. It was a challenge. Predator versus predator. Nathan grinned. Humans weren't prey. Not here. Not anywhere. He fired. The kinetic round slammed into the creature's armored plating, sending a shockwave of energy rippling through its exoskeleton. The dread maw recoiled, its body shuddering from the unexpected force. But it wasn't wounded, only angrier. "Light it up." Nathan roared. The jungle erupted in gunfire. Explosive rounds detonated against the maw's armored hide. Plasma bolts streaked through the air, scorching the creature's chitin but failing to penetrate deep. The jungle itself became a war zone. Trees splintered, fungal growths exploded, and the air was filled with the stench of burning alien flesh. But the maw was still moving, still hunting. It charged through the barrage, slamming one of its titanic legs into the ground. The impact sent shockwaves rippling outward, knocking 2 of Nathan's men off their feet. And then it went for Evelyn. She barely had time to react before the maw's gaping jaws descended, serrated mandibles snapping shut. A thunderous explosion rocked the jungle. The dread maw screeched in agony, its attack interrupted by a detonating charge, planted directly beneath its bulk. Nathan grinned, flipping a detonator in his palm. "Got you, you ugly bastard." But the fight wasn't over. Not yet. The wounded dread maw let out a guttural growl, its 6 amber eyes burning brighter. The jungle darkened as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Then, with horrifying speed, the creature burrowed into the earth, vanishing into the abyss it called home. Silence fell. Nathan exhaled, heart hammering. The hunt was far from over. And the humans? They were just getting started. The jungle was alive with chaos. Gunfire crackled, explosions tore through foliage, and the dread maw roared, a sound so deep it vibrated in their bones. The Kthari watched in stunned horror from the trees, their eyes wide, bodies trembling. They had expected the humans to flee or perish. Instead they were hunting. The kill. The dread maw charged, its massive mandibles snapping with a force that could shear through steel. It was fast, faster than anything that size had a right to be, but humans were faster. Nathan rolled under a sweeping claw, his combat knife flashing as he drove it into a joint in the creature's leg. The blade sank deep, and the maw shrieked, black ichor spraying across the ground. "Focus fire on the joints," he barked. Evelyn and Reyes adjusted their aim, unloading a barrage of rounds into the creature's weaker points, where armor gave way to flesh. The beast stumbled, its wounded leg buckling beneath it. It was wounded, vulnerable. And humans didn't show mercy. Nathan charged. He leapt, landing on the maw's back, gripping its armored plating as it thrashed. His team pounded it with explosives, blasting apart chunks of its hide. The dread maw screamed, its movements sluggish now, its amber eyes flickering with something no one had ever seen before in this species: fear. Nathan drove his blade deep into the back of its skull, twisting. The dread maw collapsed, its massive body quaking before falling still. The jungle went silent. The humans stood victorious. The feast. The Kthari emerged from hiding, their feathered bodies trembling. Their leader, Virak, approached slowly, staring at the fallen god beast. You have slain the maw, he whispered. Nathan wiped blood from his blade. Yeah. He glanced at Evelyn. How's the meat looking? She knelt beside the beast, running her scanner over its flesh. Edible. Protein-rich. No toxins. Looks like a mix between lobster and beef. She glanced up. We eating this thing? Nathan grinned. Damn right we are. The Kthari gasped. Why you would consume the flesh of death? The great maw? Virak stammered. Reyes chuckled, setting up a portable field grill. Buddy, where we're from, apex predators are just dinner with extra steps. The Kthari watched in horror as the humans began cooking their god. The unthinkable begins. The jungle was eerily silent. No distant calls of prey, no rustling leaves, no whispers of the wind. Even the Kthari, usually a species of constant motion, stood frozen, their golden eyes wide with shock. Because the humans, the off-worlders, the impossible warriors, weren't just leaving after their victory. They were preparing the beast for a feast. Evelyn sliced through the dread maw's armored hide, steam rising as exposed muscle met the air. The Kthari flinched at the sight, some turning away in horror. You cannot mean to eat it, Virak stammered, his voice faltering. Nathan looked up, grinning. Why not? We earned it. The Kthari exchanged shocked glances. To them, the dread maw was not just a predator, it was a force of nature, an ancient terror woven into the very fabric of their world. The idea of eating it was beyond sacrilege. It was as if the humans were trying to consume a god. But humans didn't see gods. They saw challenges. Reyes set up a fire pit, while Evelyn prepared thick, bloody slabs of meat, seasoned with field spices. The aroma filled the air, rich and savory, making the humans' stomachs growl in anticipation. The Kthari were horrified. The first bite. Nathan held up a charred, dripping piece of meat, still sizzling from the flames. He locked eyes with Virak and without hesitation took a bite. The moment his teeth sank in, the jungle reacted. The Kthari let out soft gasps, their feathered crests puffing in shock. Some fell to their knees, whispering prayers. Others staggered back, beaks open in stunned disbelief. Virak trembled. You consume the terror flesh? Nathan chewed thoughtfully. Not bad. Little gamey. Evelyn took a bite next. Reyes followed. Soon the humans were laughing, eating, sharing stories, as if this were a casual campfire meal, rather than an act of cosmic defiance. But the Kthari felt it. A shift. Something ancient, fundamental breaking. For centuries they had feared the dread maw. It had shaped their culture, dictated their survival, ruled their world. And now, humans had devoured it. The reckoning. Virak swallowed hard. This changes everything. Nathan leaned back, satisfied. Yeah, it does. Because now the Kthari knew the truth. They had always thought the dread maw was the apex predator. But it wasn't. The real apex predator had just arrived. Humans. The standoff between humans and the aghast alien delegation had settled into a moment of tense silence. The banquet hall, once a symbol of grandeur and power for the Zalari, had become an eerie scene of shattered expectations. The Zalari High Council had gathered to bear witness to humanity's formal acceptance into the Galactic Assembly, yet instead, they watched in horror as the humans calmly devoured the flesh of a creature their civilization had spent millennia fearing. For the Zalari, the Orcs was more than a predator. It was a nightmare given form. A beast of legend that had dictated their evolution, their philosophy, their very sense of mortality. Even now, despite their technological advancement, despite their dominance over countless star systems, the idea of consuming a Orcs was unthinkable. And yet, the humans had done it without hesitation. Dr. Adrian Carter wiped his mouth with a napkin and leaned back in his chair, eyeing the stunned expressions of the Zalari officials. He had expected resistance, but not this level of absolute shock. The tension was thick enough to slice with a knife. We're waiting, Carter said, his voice calm but edged with expectation. You wanted a demonstration of humanity's capabilities. You have it. Grand Arbiter Solka, the leader of the Zalari High Council, took a slow, calculated breath. His elongated fingers trembled slightly as he gripped the edge of the table. You ate the Orcs, he muttered, as if saying it aloud would make the reality any less absurd. Carter raised an eyebrow. Yes. We cooked it, seasoned it, and enjoyed it. To be honest, it's not bad. A bit tough, but nothing some proper preparation can't fix. A murmur of disbelief swept through the assembled Zalari officials. Some looked visibly ill. Others exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from confusion to something else, unease. Solka's mandibles clicked in agitation. You don't understand. The Vorix is a scourge. A nightmare. A creature that culls the weak and humbles the strong. It rules the wild places of our world. It is not meant to be. He struggled with the word. Food. Carter chuckled. On Earth we have a saying, everything is food to something. If it bleeds, if it moves, it can be hunted, cooked, and eaten. The only question is whether it's worth the effort. He gestured at the remains of the feast. And, frankly, this was worth it. One of the younger Zalari, an advisor seated near the back of the hall, spoke up, voice filled with disbelief. You hunted the Vorix? By yourselves? Carter nodded. Of course. He reached into his datapad and projected footage onto the central display. The Zalari delegation collectively tensed as they watched the playback. The video was visceral. A team of human hunters, some in advanced exosuits, others using only conventional weaponry, stalked the great beast through the dense jungles of Zalari Prime. The Vorix was massive, its hide and natural armor impervious to most weapons. Its fangs could tear through reinforced steel, and its speed made it a terror even to heavily armed Zalari forces. Yet the humans worked in perfect coordination. They observed its habits, its movements, its hunting patterns. They set traps where it would least expect. When the moment came, they struck with precision, adaptive tactics, quick adjustments, and an almost eerie lack of fear. And when the Vorix fell, the humans didn't recoil in relief. They celebrated. They butchered the beast with the care of experienced survivalists. They examined the cuts of meat, discussed ideal cooking methods, and even argued about which spices would complement its flavor. When the footage ended, the Zalari delegation remained frozen in silence. Solka's breath was ragged. You hunted a Vorix, as if it were game? Carter smirked. To us, that's exactly what it was. Another advisor, his voice barely above a whisper, asked the question none of them wanted to say aloud. How? Carter's smirk didn't fade. Because we're human. The words carried an undeniable weight. The Zalari had seen countless species come and go, civilizations rise and fall. They had conquered, assimilated, and eradicated. But never had they encountered a species that so thoroughly defied their expectations. Where others feared, humans adapted. Where others avoided risk, humans conquered it. And where others saw a monster, humans saw a challenge. The realization set in like a slow poison, spreading through the High Council's ranks. If humans could do this to the Vorix, what else were they capable of? One of the Elder Council members finally spoke, his voice heavy with something between awe and terror. You do not merely seek survival. He swallowed hard. You thrive in adversity. You seek it out. Carter leaned forward. We were never the strongest species on Earth. Never the fastest. We weren't born with claws or natural armor or venom. But we became the apex predators of our world. Not through strength alone, but through will, intelligence, and adaptability. His eyes scanned the room. That's what we bring to the galaxy. Solka exhaled slowly, his mind racing through the implications. If humanity could overcome something as dreadful as the Vorix, then what did that mean for the wider galactic order? Could they be controlled? Could they be intimidated? No, they could not. And that terrified him. Carter stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Consider this humanity's official introduction to the galactic community. We're not here to bow. We're not here to beg. His smile was polite, but there was a sharpness behind it. We're here to thrive. The Zalari said nothing. What could they say? As the humans departed, the council chamber remained in stunned silence. For the first time in their civilization's history, the Zalari understood what it truly meant to fear. Humanity had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same again.